My name is Vorra Senn, Senior Diplomatic Analyst for the Galactic Conclave, and I am going to tell you the most embarrassing story in the history of our civilization. Not embarrassing for humanity, embarrassing for us. Yes, us. The ones who thought we were in charge. Let me set the stage for you. Picture 412 civilizations, each one older than human writing, each one representing centuries of accumulated wisdom, political theory, and interspecies diplomacy. We had colonies across 6-star clusters. We had treaties written in 17 different energy spectrums. We had a judicial council whose founding charter was older than Earth's last ice age, and we voted to kick out one single planet. One single planet. Earth. The vote was not even close. 391 in favor, 14 abstentions, and 7 against. Seven civilizations looked at the rest of us and said, "This is a bad idea." And we laughed at them. We actually laughed. The Brevari delegation made a formal joke about it during the recess break. Everyone thought it was hilarious. Nobody is laughing now. Let me go back to the beginning, because the beginning is important. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Conclave for 43 standard cycles. 43 cycles of, how do I put this gently, being absolutely insufferable. They argued during trade negotiations. They submitted counter-proposals to counter-proposals. One of their ambassadors, a short man named Tomlin Bryce, once spent 11 hours explaining to the Resource Allocation Committee why their calculations were wrong. 11 hours. He brought charts. He brought 2 backup charts in case anyone questioned the first ones. He was correct. Everyone hated him for it. They questioned everything. Every rule, every precedent, every "this is how it has always been done." The Valkyrie Elder Council sent 3 formal complaints in one cycle alone, stating that humanity's persistent questioning of established protocol was, quote, destabilizing to the natural order of galactic governance. The natural order of galactic governance, run by us. So when the Zuvari Collective proposed formal exile, framed beautifully as a voluntary separation and resource restriction protocol, the chamber practically erupted in agreement. The arguments were polished and reasonable sounding. Humanity was disruptive. Humanity refused to honor traditional seniority hierarchies. Humanity kept winning trade disputes through procedural exploitation, which is a fancy way of saying they read the fine print better than we did. The real reason, the one nobody said out loud during the session, but everyone whispered in the corridors afterward, was simpler. They made the older civilizations feel old. They made the powerful ones feel slow. And they made the wise ones feel like they had stopped asking questions somewhere along the way. So we voted. 391 to 7. And then we told them. I was in the observation wing when Ambassador Solis Varga received the official transmission. She was a tall woman, gray-streaked hair pulled back, reading the notice on a flat display with the kind of expression I had seen on predators right before they make a decision. Not shock, not panic, just very, very quiet processing. She read it twice. Then she set the display down, turned to her attaché, a young man named Picari Walsh, and said something I have since had translated 17 times to make sure I understood it correctly. She said, "Good, good." I nearly fell out of my observation chair. "Good. Your civilization just got exiled from the largest political body in the known galaxy, stripped of trade access, communication relays, resource corridors, and cooperative defense agreements. And your response is good." Picari Walsh, to his credit, looked equally confused. "Ambassador," he said, "we have been trying to reform this institution for 30 years, Solis Varga said, setting her hands flat on the table with absolute calm. "They just handed us the one thing we needed, which is leverage." I did not understand that word in context. Not yet. None of us did. The exile took effect in 30 standard days. During those 30 days, humanity did 3 things that we were not watching closely enough. First, they contacted the 7 civilizations that had voted against exile, quietly, privately, not through official channels. Second, they began publishing something they called the Open Archive, releasing their full technological research database, unencrypted, accessible to any civilization with a receiver, propulsion theory, medical synthesis, agricultural optimization for low-resource environments, just given away, freely, to anyone. Third, and this is the part that still makes me grind my teeth when I think about it, they submitted a formal legal challenge to the exile vote itself. not to appeal it, not to beg for reconsideration. They challenged the legality of the founding charter. They found a single clause in a document 412 civilizations had signed without reading, page 2007, buried in a subsection about member rights during collective action votes, that stated explicitly that no member could be exiled without unanimous consent if said member had active unresolved trade arbitrations pending. Humanity had 14 open arbitrations. 14. Tomlin Bryce, I later learned, had been filing them quietly for 6 years, not because he expected to win them, because he was building a library. The Conclave's legal division took 4 days to respond. Their response was 3 words: challenge is valid. The Exile was suspended pending review, and Solis Varga, from her newly constructed independent communications station on the edge of the solar system, broadcast a message to every Conclave member simultaneously. It was also 3 words: now we talk. I sat in my office on the Conclave station, reading that transmission, and I felt something I had not felt in a very long time, something my species had not collectively felt since our own early years of political development, back when we were still young enough to be surprised by things. I felt outmaneuvered, not by an army, not by a weapon, by a woman with gray hair, a man with backup charts, and a legal clause on page 2007. Part 2 is coming, and I promise you it gets worse, for us. My name is still Vorra Senn, and I wish it was not, because being Vorra Senn means I have to finish this story, and finishing this story means admitting, on the official record, that 412 civilizations with a combined age of several million years got completely and thoroughly dismantled by a species that had only discovered faster than light travel 43 cycles ago. 43 cycles. My home civilization has carpets older than that. Let me tell you what happened after Solis Varga sent her 3-word message. Now we talk. Simple, clean, devastating in ways nobody in the Conclave chamber immediately recognized. The Velkari Elder Council responded first. They sent a formal rejection, citing that the legal challenge was procedurally aggressive and contrary to the spirit of collective governance. It was a beautifully worded message, dignified, authoritative. Solis Varga replied within the hour. She attached 47 pages of documented instances where the Velkari themselves had used procedural mechanisms to block votes they disagreed with. 47 pages, indexed, cross-referenced, with footnotes. The Velkari did not respond again for 6 days. Meanwhile, the open archive that humanity had released was spreading faster than anyone anticipated. The smaller civilizations, the ones without access to the Conclave's premium research corridors, were downloading everything. Agricultural systems designed for low gravity, low water environments, medical synthesis protocols that did not require rare element chains, propulsion efficiency models that cut fuel consumption by 30%. Free. All of it free. The Conclave's technology licensing division sent humanity a cease and desist notice, arguing that freely distributing advanced research undermined established market structures. Pikari Walsh handled that response personally. I have read the reply. It is 4 sentences long. The last sentence reads, "We look forward to your clarification on which galactic law prohibits a civilization from sharing its own research with its neighbors." There was no clarification, because there was no such law. We had simply never imagined anyone would do it. Here is the thing about the Galactic Conclave that I understood only after all of this happened. We had built a system optimized for stability. Stability in practice meant that the civilizations already at the top stayed at the top. The rules were written by the powerful, for the powerful, and wrapped in enough ceremony and tradition that questioning them felt almost rude. Humanity had walked into that system, smiled politely, read every document, and spent 43 cycles building a very specific kind of knowledge. Not weapons knowledge, not military leverage, something far more dangerous. Procedural knowledge. They knew our rules better than we did, and they had been patient enough to wait until the moment when we handed them the perfect opportunity to use it. The legal review of the Exile vote took 11 days. 11 days during which the 7 civilizations that had voted against Exile met privately with Solis Varga on 3 separate occasions. 11 days during which the Open Archive reached 49 additional civilizations who had never previously had access to that level of research. 11 days during which humanity's independent communications station broadcast a continuous open signal to any civilization willing to listen, running a live feed of their legal arguments, their documentation, their evidence. Transparent. Completely, entirely transparent. It was a masterclass in public pressure, and most of the conclave did not even realize they were watching one. On the 12th day, the legal division delivered its ruling. The exile vote was invalid. 14 pending arbitrations, as specified in subsection 44 of the founding charter, rendered the collective action vote non-binding until resolution. 391 civilizations had to sit down and think very carefully about what they had done. The Zufrari collective, who had proposed the exile in the first place, called for an emergency session. Their lead diplomat, a tall, four-armed individual named Prakoth Yuen, stood at the central podium and delivered what I am told was a genuinely impressive speech about unity, cooperation, and the importance of moving forward together. Solis Varga listened to the entire speech. She waited for Prakoth Yuen to finish. She waited for the polite ripple of agreement from the assembled delegates. Then she stood up, smoothed her jacket, and said 8 words. We will need some modifications to the charter, not requests. Modifications. Stated as a fact of the immediate future. The chamber went very quiet. She presented 17 amendments. 17. Each one carefully constructed, each one addressing a specific structural imbalance in the way the conclave operated. Transparent voting records. Independent arbitration panels with rotating membership from smaller civilizations, equal research access for all member species, regardless of tiered contribution status. Term limits on council positions held by founding members. Term limits. You could feel the outrage building like pressure in a sealed chamber. But here is the thing about leverage. Once you have it, the other side has to do math. Loud, uncomfortable, public math. The conclave could reject the amendments and face a legal process that humanity had already demonstrated they were prepared to run indefinitely. A process that would remain fully transparent and fully broadcast to every civilization now benefiting from the open archive. Or they could negotiate. They negotiated. 11 of the 17 amendments passed within the cycle. 3 more passed in the following review period. The remaining 3 are still in committee, which in conclave terms means they will pass eventually, once everyone has had enough time to pretend the decision was their own idea. I sat in my office the day the amendments were ratified, and I thought about something Solis Varga had said during the final negotiation session. Someone from the Brevari delegation, the same one who had made the joke during the recess break months earlier, had asked her why humanity had not simply built their own alliance and walked away from the conclave entirely. She had tilted her head slightly, the way humans do when they find a question genuinely interesting, and said, because walking away does not fix anything. You do not repair a broken table by leaving the room. You fix the table. The Brevari delegate had no response to that. Neither did I. My name is Vorra Senn. I have spent 40 years as a diplomatic analyst for the Galactic Conclave. I have watched civilizations rise and collapse. I have read treaties written before my homeworld had cities. I have seen wars start over resource miscalculations and peace established through sheer diplomatic exhaustion. And I can tell you, without hesitation, that the most effective political operation I have ever witnessed was conducted by one woman with gray hair, one man with backup charts, 47 pages of indexed documentation, and a legal clause buried on page 2007 of a document everyone else had signed without reading. They did not fire a single weapon. They did not threaten a single civilization. They just read the rules. All of them. And then they used every single one. I hear Tomlin Bryce is now heading the conclave's new independent arbitration panel. He reportedly showed up to the first session with 3 sets of charts. Nobody questioned it. Nobody dared.